Hey everybody, Dick here, and today I got a disassembly video for you on this little guy right here. This is the Peña Knives Apache, but with a very special edition, and that is this little bit right here. This is a Lee Williams Kickstop, as shown by this logo. This is actually going to be the very first time I've had one of these on the channel, and that's interesting. A little different, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and remove these screws. These appear to be T8 all around, which I really do appreciate. So I'll go ahead, I'll pull the screws on the micarta out. There should be another set of screws down under here. I expect that the kickstop system is just basically going to be a fancy stop pin, but I've never had one apart, so we'll see how it works together. But, okay, I'll remove this back bit here. And I will remove this as well. That screw's not wanting to come out. I think it's spinning, just doesn't want to drop. All right, whatever. Stay there for the moment. Then I bet this is a T10 up front. It is. Ah, it's free spinning. And very, very shallow. There's not a lot of depth to this screw, unfortunately. I'm going to grab this little guy right here. This will give me an extra T10 on this side so that I can turn things and hopefully loosen this up. Oof. A little bit of thread locker on there and very shallow screws. But it's coming apart. It's coming very slowly apart, but it is. Hopefully I can now just turn. Nope, still thread locked. Where is the screw? Okay, the screw's coming out on that side, so at the very least that's properly oriented, but this is why a free spinning pivot is a bad idea. It requires extra drives. And it looks like the kickstop's just mounted around the stop pin. Nice. Ah, come on. Get in position here. Hold that. Rotate, rotate, rotate. They're using that white thread locker where it's like gummy throughout the process, not just breaks free. Oh. Okay, so the back side is the one. So, okay, I need to remember that the pivot comes in through the front. That's kind of backwards. The reason I say that is you need to take this scale off to get to these screws, but then the pivot comes in from the other side, which is weird, but whatever. Now I should be able to lift everything apart here. Okay, so there's the kickstop system. That's just fallen out, which is running on a little tiny set of phosphor bronze washers. Oh, it's adorable. Without that kickstop, actually, this is just a regular... Oh, it doesn't have a stop pin, so yeah, you kind of need that. Now I need to get this last screw to just come loose. Is it free spinning? Is that my issue here? No, okay, now it's out. Good. Okay, so now I should be able to lift this off. The only issue being this pin in the back there. Okay, now we're good. And the fact that it's trying to do this from both... Oh, come on, no. That was harder than it needed to be, but not all that hard. Okay, so what we see here is pretty straightforward. Oh, interesting. So, let's start off just by cleaning things up. Let's degunk this whole affair. I'm using some rubbing alcohol here on a little cloth strip, and I am going to clean off this area. This is actually surprisingly dirty. This is just fresh from the factory. This was sent to me by Steel Addiction Knives, but yeah, it's surprisingly dirty. But that could just be, well, who knows what that could be. What we need to do is then clean all of this gunction off. We're probably going to end up with a much better action once we clean this off, which is nice. And we see that there are stainless washers in there for the bearings to ride on. We see that they've put a thick grease on these little bearings, which is something Rayot will occasionally do. I'm assuming these are still being made by Rayot. That would be very weird if they weren't, but just because they tend to do a lot of the kickstop stuff too. But anyways, so just kind of wiping all this off, cleaning this off, and then we will take a closer look at the kickstop system and kind of how that works. That's this whole little bit right in here. Again, just kind of clean this off. Kind of want to get these washers off. So the piece itself is very straightforward, right? It's a little post going through a piece of metal. It's not even captive. The piece of metal has a very specific shape, but that's pretty graceful, I gotta say. Having not handled the kickstop before, I thought there might be more mechanism in there, but no, it's geometry. And I appreciate that. When cleverly shaped pieces of metal offer great functionality, that's a win. Okay, so now what we're going to do is it backwards, meaning I am going to, for the moment, reinstall the pivot backwards. The reason I am doing this is pretty straightforward in that I just want to have the pivot in place so that we can basically try this kickstop system without everything. Actually, I'm not even going to bother lubing things. Just kind of in a demonstrator mode so I can get a better sense how this thing works. Okay, so the blade is in here. Right now, this is a knife that I fully understand, right? This is no different. What's different is going to come in this process. I'm going to drop this pin, and I'll go ahead and I'll throw some lube on there. Can't hurt. I'm using 10-weight nano oil here, by the way. Go ahead and push this through. Then I'll go ahead and I'll put this washer on. And then I'll put this washer on the other side. Now what I can do is drop this whole affair into its home. And I'm going to put a little extra lubrication on these washers, not actually because it needs more lubrication, but because it will help them stay put. Okay, now how does this work? When the knife is closed, I need this guy to be, so it needs to be flat. Okay, yeah, this is how it works. So the knife, okay, good. Right now the kickstop system is in place and serves as the stop pin. When the knife is fully open, let's see if I can zoom in here. When the knife is fully open, it looks like the kickstop system is serving as the stop pin for the knife. When the knife starts to close, what we're going to see, this is brilliant. What we're going to see is that this part of the blade, engages and then presses this part out. So now at this point in time, in order to deploy the knife, what I can do is I can pull back on this, which serves as a flipper tab, and rotates around this pivot to press the knife out, at which point the kickstop mechanism disappears into the handle and becomes, well, just where it is. It becomes the stop pin again. And so this little chunk of metal is both the stop pin, well, open and closed, as well as a flipper tab. God, that's brilliant. That is a really nice system. This is, okay, now I'm going to flip the pivot before I forget, because it needs to go the other way, apparently. But that's great. I love seeing that kind of thing. This is, I'll zoom back out for you. This is the kind of thing that keeps me sort of invigorated. And I don't want it, by the way, I'm not claiming that the kickstop is new, right? Absolutely not. The kickstop is a relatively old innovation, so to speak. Old innovation? Is that a thing? But either way, it's been around for a while. But at the same time, it's smart, right? What they have done here is created something that feels like a very complicated system. A disappearing flipper tab that, also serves as the stop pin. They've created something that feels very complicated. Lee Williams has, that is. The creator of the kickstop, but is actually very simple mechanically, right? The only thing that makes this work is the shape of the knife and then the shape of the cutout there. There's nothing fancy here. And that's great. Did I lubricate the other bearing? I sure didn't. Did I install the other bearing? I sure didn't. Oh, no, it's in, oh, yeah, the other bearing is on the other side. Okay, not a brilliant man. So I'll lubricate that. I'll drop on this bearing. And there we go. Now I put this here. I bet this is going to run a lot better with both bearings installed. Anyways, but this is the kind of thing that I like a lot. I really do appreciate, because how often do you see, overcomplication? How often do you, and some might argue that this itself is an overcomplication. You don't need that to be a moving part, right? You don't need a flipper at all. But honestly, that's a really cool way to produce a cool effect. Unfortunately, the rest of it is. Oh, look at that! These backspaces are free spinning too. Like they're wanting to unscrew from the other side. The flip-flop nature of the disassembly isn't great here, but still, I do appreciate that. So I want to make sure then, as I'm putting this back together, that not only is the pivot in this hole, but that the kickstop is in that one, right? That is something I need to be careful of. So I'll keep this guy sort of, try and get everything in position here. I'm going to remove the pressure on the lock bar here. And there we go. Once I manipulated the kickstop system a little bit, everything is sort of popping in place. Do I have missing pieces? Have I screwed something up already? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in the pivot screw with some caution. Where the heck's my T10 bit? The world's shallowest T10 bit. Go ahead and put that in there. Okay, whoop. And let's go ahead and start to tighten this all down. At this point in time, the knife is obviously not fully reassembled, but everything should function, right? I can do a quick function check and make sure that, okay, is the kickstop system working? Yes. Okay, knife runs great. So now we go ahead and we fully reassemble everything. I'll go ahead and put that there. These two screws go inside. These are two T6s. That's a T10. And the other handle screw is a T8 on top of the micarta. There's that. This pin is slightly ajar. I don't know whether it's supposed to be flush or not, so yeah, I can press it a little further in there. Beautiful. Okay, and let's go ahead and put this guy. Where's my T6 again? Beautiful. But yeah, that's reinvigorating, right? Seeing something a little different and something very cleverly done, where the idea is complicated, but the implementation is not. That's a joy, right? That's something that it's existed for a while, but it's nice to see it having existed, right? Okay, let's go ahead and use my T8 here. Again, with the world's shallowest freaking screw. And tighten that down. And I believe we should be good to go here. Pivot tension is not quite right. It is still too loose. Part of the way I can tell that is that my centering is now off. So I want to tighten this up a little bit further. But because it's free spinning, that is going to be a pain in the butt. So let's go on ahead and hold this up here. And then tighten. All right. No play. It actually feels a little too tight. Although the centering, is there play? Interesting. I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to remove this scale real quick, because I'm wondering whether I locked the back, or maybe I didn't fully lock down the back screws here. Something ain't quite right here. So I'll remove this. Maybe is everything okay? I'm wondering whether I got something subtly ajar here. There's no play. I'm going to loosen these screws up here in the back. And when that happens, where am I at? No trouble, at least. It's kind of acting like the pivot is too loose, but I don't feel like it is. Maybe it is, though. I'm going to try and tighten the pivot a little bit more. Let's see what that does for me. Ugh. Enrique, you're killing me here. Put a D shape on the damn pivot. There we go. I was able to get a little more tightness, and now we're centered, actually. Still no play. The kickstop makes the knife feel a little different, which is interesting. But okay, now I'm going to tighten this down. Now we are roughly dead centered. Okay, so it's just the pivot wasn't tight enough, and that was masked by the fact that the pivot is super annoying because it's free spinning. All right, I can live with that. Tighten these guys down. Being careful not to over crank these just because there's not a lot of screw grabbing in, right? Yeah. Centering is more or less on point. It could be that I can go a little tighter on the pivot and get it fully centered. Yeah, now we're as close as we need to be. Beautiful. All right, so that's how the kickstop works. A couple of little annoyances in terms of the construction there, but aside from that, knife's working great. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.